welcome everybody to the regular board meeting of the Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District. And Peter, can you do the roll call?
Certainly.
Present.
Schroeder. Here. Perot. And Rita Taronda.
Here.
Here. So,
Okay, thank you.
Just like welcome everyone to the regular board meeting, and please use the raise your hand function if you would like to speak.
Okay. Can you tell us if there's any people?
There are 3 people in attendance. Yes.
Okay. Are there any corrections to the agenda or the consent count?
I have a few questions on the acquisition, so move them out.
If you guys can get closer to your microphones, Doug cannot hear you.
Any questions on the consent for claims? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question on one of them is on acquisition for the propane. So if
Okay, so the
I
category is.
have no objection, but I'd like to
Yeah,
discuss.
okay, so we'll pull that out. So that's 7D.
And hold on, for page 25. I think that's. Page 25 is the past dues. That's correct.
That's for, oh, that's
That's 7C.
17. Okay,
I have a question on that as well.
okay.
Hold on. And that's it.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll move 7D and C to. And next is comments from the audience, not trying to cover any item that's not on the agenda.
See any hands raised?
No hands raised. Any comments for the public then?
They're in the packet.
Yeah. The public. Okay. Great. Then let's move on for adoption of consent calendar item 7A. Motion. Okay, second. Motion second. Okay, roll call please.
Testing.
Aye.
Taronda.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 8. The first question is approval for current consent for claims. So questions you have.
Yes, on page. Additional command, we have 2 sets of board packet. There's the board packet. I start working on it. I get page number, and now it's fine. At this stage, for the later part, I may be off on my page.
Okay,
number. And so, as a general thing, it'd be nice to have the packet.
Absolutely.
So page 17. So the only the question is, so I see we have one about 12, I think, invoice for the propane, and they all originate from PIVA, and they all are between 22, 20, almost 22, 23K. So my assumption here is a full-time cost. Okay. That's all right.
Brandy, you want to respond to that? I'm asking Brandy to respond.
So are you asking here if each of these deliveries was a full tanker?
No question, so you can answer up here. So it looks to me we got 12 invoices for full tanks. I don't see any other suppliers. That is my first question. So all our propane came from PIVA. Number one, the first question. Number two, they all look, unless these invoices correspond to multiple delivery, they are dated, I don't think so, but it looks like we always get full tank. So I try to reconcile what I read or been told that we actually got short delivery of propane, and I just don't see them here.
So I think I understand. We did get 3 what we call bobtail deliveries in the month of January. I do not know from a billing perspective if those were all lumped together and billed as one delivery. They did come through our regular supplier or a subsidiary of our regular supplier. And that might be something that Tommy can answer, but I don't know how those were billed.
So maybe we are not yet billed or not in the AP books the next month. So I don't know if Tommy is here, maybe he can answer that.
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to research.
Okay, why don't we get back to you?
Okay, yeah, just try to reconcile these 12 bills to all the delivery we got, and because it doesn't count with what we were told and what I was told, so I just try to, I'm a number guy, and follow the numbers, and I just don't follow the way it is now compared to what was actually. So that's my number 1 question as far as active ratios. So it looks like maybe we have not been paid yet. Partial deliveries. So depending on the help.
Yes, that's possible that we have not paid those deliveries yet. I am not sure, but we'll check into that for you, Bertrand.
Yeah, okay, sure. Next month, that's fine. I mean, it's just, I was surprised because of the find that.
Right.
So and then page 25. So the other thing is on the past due balance. We have substantial. So the first question I have, try to understand that what we call current balance of this statement of past due balance, page 5. So the way I understand it, and I feel wrong in this case, I'd like clarification. If you don't pay by the 30 years of the month, then you have to pay a fee. Actually, you are not showing up in the current balance column here. So everyone who paid before the 30 years, by the 30 years, account are not showing up here. So all what we call current balance are actually already past due. Correct?
Tommy?
I'm having a hard time understanding you, Bertrand. Can you speak a little bit closer to the mic?
So my understanding is, paid by the 30 years of the month, you are current. If you pay after the 30 years of the month, then you become past due, and you are going to have to pay a late fee. That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. So that list that we call current balance is actually a past due from the current balance, correct?
Correct.
So it would be actually 1 to 30 days instead of. So what I'm saying is everything will be shifted. The first column is already past due, it should be called past due 1 to 30.
So people become past due, and so certain people, so like you can see some people unfortunately pay $1,000 every month or $500 more traditionally for their bills. Instead of paying the full bill, they pay $500. And sometimes their bills are $400, sometimes their bills are $600. So unfortunately, it's a roller coaster. So this is the portion of their bill that is past 30 days or 60 days. Does that make more sense to you?
But that's not what he's,
Yeah, I'm not understanding what
he's saying that the column called current balance is actually past due.
Past due 130. Otherwise.
So is that
correct?
Yeah.
So the 1 to 30 column is over 1 to 30 days past due.
And the current balance is their current invoice, the current bill,
current invoice.
which, okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so that was my first question, trying to understand, so I can understand. the
Yeah, I
numbers.
mean, this is how it's been as long as I've been here, so nothing's
Yeah.
changed,
Yeah, I
so,
know it's been like that for many years.
Yeah.
I was just trying to understand the rationale of the number of the outline, and to me, they are off by one, but that's okay. Now that I know the semantic. So my question on those is, a bunch of 5 digits past you, can I assume this is the result?
don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know that, so, so I'm just surprised that we keep getting this. Past you, that's it. My comment. Yeah, so now that you clarify that the first column is actually past you, I'm okay. Okay.
Tommy, just for clarification, the column current balance, has the deadline to pay the current balance column passed?
Let me look into it. I mean, this is just the report that Kelly's always told me to run. So I don't look at each of these individually. I look at them more in depth when they get a little bit older, like the 31 to 60 day and the over. The current balance, to my understanding, let me do more research. I'd be shooting blind. This is just a report that was always run and was given to the board.
Just look into it and
So I can look into it. And
send Bertrand an email, let him know.
sounds great.
Yeah, well, I'll be interested. Okay, great. Any other questions?
No, that's it.
Okay, then, we have a motion to adopt 7, consent. Robert, so moved. Okay. Who wants to second? Second, okay. All right, Elsie? Aye. Bird? Aye. Burrow?
Aye.
Liz, Robert?
Aye.
Override? Okay. And then item 7C, receipt of the report. Okay. That's fine. Further, Burrow?
So I'm lost. What was the question?
We're just doing 7C now.
Oh, okay. Yes, aye.
Brendan?
Aye.
Right, we're ready now for item 9, and to board action, finances.
So the finances, again, just listing the funds right up top in case anyone has questions about them. But these are the points as done previously that I kind of pulled out. As always, other revenue is built from penalties, fire assessments, connection fees, and the sale of that Meadows unit, which is why Fund 40 is so high. At this point, when we're over halfway through the year, so I'm going to start looking at year to date more than month by month, because that'll give you a good overview of how we're doing for the year. So the income year to date income statement, we are at $200,363 up from budget due to that Meadows unit sale and the connection fees that Bale paid for water fund. The income statement for the water fund, income year to date is up from budget $102,707. Operations and maintenance is up, which is a cost from plan due to parts and repairs from Optometric. The income statement for the wastewater fund is up from plan $197,000. Operations and maintenance is up from plan as well due to a diagnostic that was run from Aqua Sierra. For the electric fund, the cost of goods sold is up from plan due to large shell invoices. And this is the main thing I really wanted to talk about today. Purchase power, we do buy on the day ahead market. We talked about this a little bit in finance, but just to give everyone an idea. I'm trying to pull up this spreadsheet. So in June, we normally think that it's going to cost us about 11 cents a kilowatt hour. In July, that was true. In August, it was actually 14 cents. In September, it was 16 cents. In October, again, it was 11 cents. November is 11 cents at the moment. But December was 31 cents. And the biggest thing that we'll see is when Shell invoices us, they invoice us last month, but then they'll do corrections up to 2 years afterwards. We just caught this 31 cents this time, and it kind of flagged me. So I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that we are below what we thought we were going to be. So it was just more expensive for us. We also talked a little bit about running the generators in those times, which unfortunately isn't an option. The generators are used for backup power only if we go down. And that went traditionally when we were running them full time 8 years ago, cost of diesel was about 67 cents to run the generators a kilowatt hour. And obviously diesel costs have gone up. So that's not, unfortunately, a usable option. But I just want to bring that up to everyone. Just moving right along though, the snow removal fund currently is up from plan $43,000, but this is unfortunately, I expect that to go down due to January expenses being so high with those giant storms and staffing levels during those times. Propane fund, again, I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but it is down from budget 13,000 due to the cost of goods. And the solid waste is currently up from planned 20,000. Any specific questions anyone had though?
31 cent wholesale price for electricity is either a misunderstanding or a mistake.
That was the day ahead market. We went back and verified that was what the day ahead was selling.
For that particular day.
Correct. For that day.
The average for the month.
Oh no, sorry, that was the average for the month.
Average, correct. So I mean, it's an aggregate throughout the month. It was just more expensive. We believe because of with all the storms in California, obviously solar is not going to be as effective. But that's just a guess. I have a call into the Shell to try and get a little bit more information, but I haven't heard back from them yet.
We don't have an average cost of electricity for January for December, like we're looking at.
December is 31 cents, he said. 31.
Is what they billed us.
Yeah.
Average.
31.
31 cent, 31.4 cents.
Well, maybe that's why the answer should be big.
Right, and that's what he was explaining. Yeah, but he's looking into it and to see why. And as he noted, there are corrections that we get periodically.
Yes, we can get credit back and be sure we can get an additional 30.
Correct. Correct.
Right. I need to panic.
Well, that's why we bring it up.
Yeah. No, it's unbelievable. But the main thing happening in California is the amount of electricity is generated with natural gas in Spain got really expensive because natural gas
Right.
prices.
So that trickles to us, and
I'm gonna ask some of the experts.
hopefully you know. Hopefully you know some.
Yeah, hopefully.
Let me know what Severin tells us. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
11.
11 cents.
Traditionally 11. And I mean, again, it will get more truer numbers as the months continue, just because they start giving us those corrections of imbalances.
Right. I mean, and as Tommy said, the other month was September was 19, and another one was 11. One was 10. So it bounces on the day.
It bounces.
Could I just get a Doug? If I could just, Doug, how's audio now? We've been playing with the board.
It's tough.
It's better.
It's better.
Is it better? Okay.
I wouldn't say crystal clear, but better. So thank you.
Okay. So if everyone could just really keep your microphones close to your face, we'd appreciate it.
While we're on this topic, Tommy, if I
Please.
remember before I joined the board, there had been conversations about having longer term contracts instead of purchasing on the day ahead market. Can you remind me in terms of what that type of price would be, or historically what the break evens for day ahead, and if we saw prices on the day ahead creeping up consistently, where it would make more sense to try to think about something more contractual?
Tommy wasn't here back then.
Yeah.
So Doug, to answer your question, it was more expensive for us to go to a fixed price contract over a day ahead.
Yeah, but I do remember hearing that. I'm just trying to remember, like, how much higher does it, like, where was that break even, and how much higher would that have to day ahead you have to be before that would actually start to switch or be close to thinking about again? Or are we anywhere near that, is I guess more importantly the question.
I think based on the fact that natural gas was so high on the West Coast, and if you've been reading the news, Gavin Newsom is asking FERC to investigate. So it's not just us that saw it. Are we going to see a repeat of that? Possibly, but I'm sure entities like Shell are smart enough to put that into their pricing, and we would probably ultimately pay more if they were going to anticipate that. So when we analyze this, it didn't pencil out. I imagine it would be the same.
The problem is that if we do a fixed contract, we have to contribute power to sell to somebody else. So the risk you're running is that we have amount of power we have to take. We can't take it all. We have to find a buyer. We lose money off of that. Yeah. But with the inability to fix the load on a day-to-day basis, that it's a large thing to manage for such a small amount of. That's the risk of going to a fixed contract.
We need to have a load ready to use. Something like pumping water at the top of the mountain, we have to make a plan to have a programming or a load to adjust that, maybe something
Or a ready buyer. Yeah, it's just a lot more sophisticated.
But any other questions on the financials, so we stay on Brown Act compliant here?
So we purchase electricity from anywhere.
But we purchased it off the Cal ISO grid, which can be anywhere.
Anywhere.
It can be anywhere.
So because December was actually pretty lousy weather month, so there was not much renewable, maybe wind, but not sun. So it's possible that they have to do much more fast. You can have the electricity. So,
Okay, let's go back.
Are there any questions on the finance?
yes.
Other questions on that?
Bertrand said yes.
What are they?
Is page 29 covered in your summary?
I don't know, is it?
Page 29. So I have a question here. I'm trying to understand all aspects of this. So, and this is something that's been done forever, but I would like to get a clarification on how this thing works. So we show inflow liability, we add that, and then we show net assets. So net asset is 20 million. So that.
One sec, let me come in there. It's too garbled. I can't understand your question. Give me 1 second.
He's going to come in because he can't understand you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's been Doug and Howard and a few other people said it's hard to understand.
Perfect, but I can't.
You can hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. I just can't understand you. I'm like,
Okay.
so let's just come in.
Doug, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear Tommy?
Can you hear me now, Doug?
I can hear Tommy. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So my question is on page 29. So we have the total different inflows, the liabilities, and then we add up that. So I thought that was basically our total liabilities. But then there is equity showing net asset. So net asset, I would expect them with a positive number to be superior to not the liability. Okay, so why do we add up the net asset to the total liabilities and deferred income?
I guess I don't understand your question.
Well,
He wants to know why this
So
is added to
the net
this,
assets
to give this.
should be the add up.
well, our total assets is 61 million. Our total liabilities are 57 and the difference.
Okay, so our asset are 69 million.
Well, no, our assets, yeah, right. Exactly. So our equity is our assets. and liabilities.
And 57 are negative, so that's seen as.
It's good writing.
Thank you.
Any other questions
then,
now?
hold on, page 31. Page 31, my question is also kind of a generic one. And, why do we have such difference between the actual and the budget for the commercial based rate? Unless there is new account or closing account, I would expect us to be fairly accurate in our budgeting of the base rate because it's not once at a month.
Yeah, Bob and I are looking into this one.
Huh?
Bob and I are looking into this one. It's just how, when we set the budget, it was just, Kelly used a 12-month kind of straight line. And it was just a little bit off, I believe is.
I think,
Actually, I'm looking at the year to date, we are 6.6%, which is a.
so, yeah, so the answer is Kelly used a 5-year rolling average of base rates when base rates were actually known. She should have used the actuals, but the problem is we don't know the CPI, which affects a portion of the electric base rates and affects all of the other base rates. We don't know the CPI. That doesn't come out. The June CPI doesn't come out till July. So when you set the budget, we don't know the CPI. We don't know what the base rates will actually be. And so because we're using a 5-year average on the base rates, which we shouldn't, which we're going to talk about, we're going to fix that. It will be within a closer margin of error. We're assuming a 5% CPI, but if it wasn't a 5% CPI, if it's 4, you're going to see a 1% difference, and you'll know exactly why.
That's a good answer. Basically, I was fishing for doing a better job next year. Page 38.
Here, I can handle these. Go. All right, check with Chris.
So we are now on Mexico, and so I basically the question. But 12K, 12K in residential rate, additional. So my question is, do we have any?
No, it's the same problem. It's exactly the same problem.
That's what I said. And that's it for the financial. Thank you.
Any other?
I have one question for her.
Why don't you shoot it to me and we'll see what we can do.
So, since we finished the calendar year, have we finished estimating what the rest, how much property tax we need?
That will be in, yeah, that is, we've done the first half of the Rust Form 7. And then the second half, we're working on that, and that's due in March. That's when we know. It's when we do the Form 7 submission.
Oh, okay.
So we don't know yet, is the short answer.
Okay, we could know, but we don't.
Right. We haven't done the Form 7 3 months in advance of its due date, correct?
Okay. All right, should we move on to January preliminary?
I don't believe we have preliminaries because of the closing. Just this is always true. So we don't have preliminaries this month or cash flow. It's just the way the month closed.
Okay, is there anything?
We went through some topics in the finance meeting. The 31 cents, the base rate calculation, so all been covered.
Okay. We'll move on to performance reporting.
Hey, everybody. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, you're up, Brandy.
Okay, thank you. So the electric performance reporting in your packet shows a production, which was all purchased off the grid, of a little over 1 million kilowatt hours. This was well over our budgeted kilowatt hours. Just high usage, high resort activity for the month. 17% loss for the month, bringing us to 14% year to date. For propane, I have a note. We worked through some issues here in the office about the timing of pulling our preliminary reads. And the number you see here reflected for January actual metered is approximately 300,000 cubic feet lower than our actual build. So I will update that. So if I use that number, we actually metered 3,543,000 cubic feet for the month, giving us a 10% loss rather than this 18% loss that you see here. This will be updated in the coming months. We are happy to see a positive loss after our couple of negative months there. So we are on track for about a negative 10% loss in propane.
Before we move to the page, can I make just a tiny comment here? I think for January total production, not the date for each, because probably should be any number on the carries of purchase.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
12608, I think that's coming from December.
Yeah, you're correct. The very first row in January should be 106,124,284. You just copied it from December.
Oh, thank you.
What surprised me is I assume that column to be a function, not something you enter by hand. And if that's the case, it would have to be correct.
Correct. It should be a function which adds up the ISO power and the powerhouse production. That is correct. We will make that change also when I'm updating the propane. Thanks for pointing that out. All right. So for water for the month of January, we produced from our wells 1.8 million gallons of water. Of that, we had approximately 240,000 gallons of unidentified losses, or 13%. And we had talked about last month that the negative 17% was likely just a storage in our tanks issue. So we do see that turning around here. A 10% loss year to date for water. And then on to wastewater, which we see quite high numbers of unidentified inflow and infiltration. So at our plant, we metered 2.56 million gallons. Only 1.27 million gallons came into the system via water meters coming into the drains, leaving us with a 49% unidentified metered usage. We did have a large amount of precipitation in January. Looking back historically, this is not the largest number we've ever seen in January, but it is quite high. And it is something that we need to make sure that we're keeping an eye on. I do know that we've had a couple of manholes that have been hit by snow removal equipment, causing chipping in the rings or lids to be ajar for a while. Some of that plays into this high number, but certainly not all of it. So this is something that we'll be keeping an eye on as we go through the rest of our winter.
Just to on that, like, Brandy, can you hear me just fine on this mic?
I can hear you, Tommy, yes.
We're gonna use this mic for the board.
Use my mic. So one mic you share? Yes. So I will pass it around. So what I was going to say is, December, we had a lot of water, we had a rain, snow even, but we had a lot of ice. And I think maybe the water was not able to go through. And then sometime in January, in December, not January, we did have warmer weather, and then the water was able to get in. So it might be still linked to that rain over water situation.
Very possibly so, because it was quite a bit warmer.
Is that a lot better, Doug, using that one mic?
I don't know, Brandy, would you say a lot or
It is better.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. Okay.
I don't know. At this point, we're doing our best, and we'll figure it out. We'll ask for repeat questions, and if we have to, or Eric, for you to.
So
restate.
Doug, I'm curious, can you hear me? Because I'm wondering if I'm running off my microphone on my laptop.
We can hear you perfectly fine, Eric. You
Okay,
sound
I have no
perfectly
microphone near me now, so I don't need that back, Tommy. Share that with the board. And I apologize to the audience for the audio issues, but we're doing our best.
I know the issue was exactly my problem at my location, because the surface water had no place to go because of the ice. Just something that we'll see if it makes full response to 25, which I expect. My point here is frozen because it was a cold month, colder than typical. It's the water can't get in.
Brandy, why don't you keep going?
Thank you. We also have included here in the performance report packet the average aquifer levels for 4 or 5. You will see that that's low. It's right at the lowest we've ever seen. And if you go to the aquifer level sheet, you will also notice that our operators have been using well 4 or 5 less than well 2 and well 3 just started back up. So our operators are monitoring the aquifer levels. We have switched over to operating well 2 significantly more, and well 3 has just come back online. There was a chlorine pump that was replaced. So this is something that they are monitoring in operations. We're not at any level where we are concerned about the water level. We're also not doing any snowmaking from the water system at present. And as we get more snow and snow melt, this will be something that we look to see recharging through the spring.
The comment here is you omit the region for the upper section. So January was easy to find because that was just a single dot, but figure out which year.
Orange is 2020.
Okay, but this region is missing for the top section.
I'm sorry, I only caught that something was missing from this section.
I've been showing the relationship between the colors and years. Orange is what 2020.
No, we don't know which year is which on the top section.
So orange is 2022, green is 2021.
I'm sorry, on the aquifer level average sheet. I see what you're saying.
Okay.
I have nothing else on performance reporting.
Okay, let's move on to the first.
Can I make a comment on the propane usage? Are we, because you pass beyond that, no?
As far as our propane tank levels, we were at 60 and 80% today, so we're in good shape there.
Page 47, I was hoping to make a comment here on page 47.
Go ahead.
So we can see that commercial is a substantial part of the usage, with a very few accounts actually. There's a few accounts that are responsible for the section of our consumption. And knowing that we have this capacity discussion, I really think we need to see what action can we actually take to reduce our demand, so we don't have to expand capacity. And it shows here how much commercial is a big part of the situation. And I understand by the communications and by the district that actually once the district asked for conservation, this commercial account did act and it had a huge impact. So
yeah, that's not correct, Bertrand. That's not what you just said is not correct. It's the HOAs that turned down their boiler temperatures that had the biggest impact. The HOA turned down their boilers, their temperatures. No, the HOA common area goes into commercial. You're incorrect. Now you do.
So commercial, so that means
it was the HOA boilers that really saved us. Basically KPS and Pyramid Peaks, who manage all the condos, that's the action that helped us the most. So the Lodge, the Snowcrest, the Meadowstone, the Meadows, turning down their boilers a few degrees is where we made the savings.
So you said, so that's different to what you said earlier. So on the email, I don't know if it's you, but on the email, you are saying commercial, we have a substantial commercial consumption.
Yeah, the confusion is the categories. What was said is correct. But you would think commercial means like restaurants.
So I was only saying the same thing. So why do you say I'm not right? I'm confused because I said commercial, whatever you call commercial. There are a few big accounts in commercial that were able to substantially reduce their capacity.
Yeah, they were the residential HOA common accounts were where we saw a reduction.
Yeah, to me, KCA is typically commercial. It's not a personal. It's not the personal.
I'm not talking again. I wasn't saying KCA. Meadowstone. That's a condominium. You know, okay. So Meadows, all those, the property managers that run those turn their boilers down in the condos.
In the condos or in the common area of the condo?
The boilers.
So that's different to what I've just said.
The boilers run the heat for all the condos.
Yeah.
So that's a radiant heat. So when they turn the boiler down, it affects all the residential units.
Just the common area. It's everything. It's residential and common area.
Correct. But it's a commercial account because the HOA owns it, not an individual homeowner.
So basically, I suppose,
yeah, ones like that. Basically, everything in the commercial corridor that has propane and has boilers, that's where we saw help. We also saw help at KCA when they turned off their spa heaters as well, which is more of a true commercial. I agree.
Okay. So that's a good plan.
We're based on schedule here. So, Brandy, can you cover the meter capacity?
Sure thing. So we have here a residential meter protection update. As you see, the 3 that we had in January and February still are here. They have not been shut off. The February one is upcoming. The January has submitted plans. We are in the process of reviewing plans and working with that homeowner to get that installed. Currently built to standard or low risk with an agreement in place, we're at 67%.
And the one in January, those plans were approved, so he's in construction now. So he's been acting in good faith, so we've been able to work with him on his deadline.
Yes, thank you.
So I will comment on that, if you may. For 67% BTS. But I assume that the standard will be the same for everybody. And it's not the case because actually we are looking at the spec sheet that was signed to homeowners, very few actually are matching. So my question is, can we define a realistic standard? So based on all the knowledge you have now of what is acceptable and what is not, can the official standard be revised so 7% actually meets that criteria? Otherwise, I'm concerned we have unequal treatment. And I'm concerned of that. So for example, just to give you one example, in the current spec sheet for the open meter, we have specifications for specific anti-system. And very few people have such systems. Some people don't even have venting and they are still considered BTS. So I think I would like to ask operation maybe to start looking to revise the current standard so we are consistent between what we say and what we do. That makes sense.
I'm not sure that I understand. We have been at this for several years now, and there were early on, our standard has been adopted in the middle of the process. So there's certainly some meters that received a rating prior to the adoption of the current standard, and we have not gone back to those customers and said, oh, you have to change this. But we have been trying very hard to be consistent, understanding that all of the installations are different, to make sure that at least we're having the same structural standard, having an engineer submit an alternate standard, or allowing people to do the under deck standard, which exist in a lot of locations. So I'm not clear on what we would need to we'll be reevaluating it in 5 years anyway. So I'm not sure what we need to do in the meantime.
I'm not going to get into specifics of who and what, but I'm aware of a number of instances where people are, and I think it's appropriate to be vouched for by the state, but they are not meeting to the level the official document that we have for the standard. And I'm concerned of that discrepancy because then I see there is some liability and exposure for the district if we appear to have an uneven treatment of people.
So first of all, there's no disparate treatment of people at all. If not everybody can build our standard based on how their house is built, where the meter is. So they retain an engineer who will say that it meets or exceeds district standard, and they do a unique design. There's no point in changing our design because that will always be the case.
I understand the case I'm thinking about. I think it was not what I was thinking of. I know of specific meters that basically are enclosed with a venting within the requirement in our document, which I believe actually should specify venting area square inch or whatever, square footage area. And so I still think we need to adjust that thing so it will be easier for homeowners to understand what they need to do. And as I said, on the venting side, I know several situations that actually are not meeting the letter of our requirement. I think that I trust the judgment from the district on liberalism BTS. What I'm concerned is on the outside, if you look at this specific situation, which does not meet what we said needs to be done, and then there is no engineering letter to specify why.
I'm curious, how do you know there's no engineering letter on these?
I can check it offline.
No.
I'm
Who?
gonna just interrupt and say the goal is just to report the current status. And if we want to have a discussion of changing it, we should agenda that for another time.
Yeah, my request was operation to look at it.
Okay, that's for her and.
Yeah.
And the chair will do that.
I can be useful.
Sorry, the audio is a little bit tough on that. Eric, can you just repeat what exactly was the request made to, I think it was operations, to make sure I understood what was the conversation, the gist of all that?
To revisit the standard.
Thank you.
Based on the information of the last 2 years of work that was done by the district of inspection and watching specific circumstances.
Brandon, do you want to cover commercial here?
Commercial. We are working with the two remaining HOAs that have high ratings for February. Nothing else until the summer. They are working on this, have been working with John Campbell and an engineer to get these approved so that there are no interruptions there. So reasonably good progress in commercial as well.
Thank you very much. I'll move on to item 9D, policy.
This is just an update to increase the authority of the operations manager, assistant general manager, and administrative manager to sign purchase orders up to $2,500. I'm signing about 10 to 12 per week that are between 1,000 and 2,500. They're ministerial, they're budgeted items. And so it just takes an extra step off our plate. Plus, I also look at all the accounts payable checks. So I look at all these ultimately before I sign the checks anyway. So it's already a triple check. We're just making it a double check, which to update it to 2,500. The other thing that I did add is procedures for purchasing non-budgeted items. So a great example is we had a pump go out at the wastewater plant that's going to cost $31,000. It's not budgeted, but we had to order it to keep the plant running. So I added a criteria in there, except in emergencies, and which they'll be presented at the next board meeting.
Any questions? Yeah. No, it's just clarifying that in an emergency situation, the emergency was presented at the next board meeting.
Motion to adopt.
Yes, but first and second.
No, I think that sounds reasonable to me.
Okay,
Is there a motion to adopt?
motion to adopt.
I'll second.
Second.
Actually,
Aye.
Shorter, aye. Roll,
I
Mr. Rhonda.
Aye.
Move on to 9E now. Start with the 23-24 budget.
Okay. So there's actually quite a bit of meat to this. So I'm just everything that I'm skipping over is what we traditionally change, the years, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So any questions on that, we can come back to them, but I'm just going to go through and hit some of the highlights here. The G&A allocation, between Brandy, Rick, and myself, we've been spending an exorbitant amount of time in snow removal. It's been this way for many years, and this reflects our actual time. We spend a lot less time in water than what the old percentage reflects, and so we've proposing an adjustment of 1.2% to snow removal to reflect our actual efforts. So that's that one. On generally, I'm assuming a 5% CPI across the board. I'll identify where it's different. The electric, it's only on the fixed cost of the base rate. It's not the whole base rate. And then meter charges are 5%. Propane,
Just one question. I mean, a fixed cost is on mortgage payment is also a fixed cost, so this is just.
well, that's how we defined in the rate study when we pulled out the mortgage payment. We defined that as not a fixed cost. So I'm going with what the electric rate study.
Okay.
That's its nomenclature, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. But I think you helped me write that, by the way. For propane, I'm assuming a 5% CPI, but I'm also assuming an additional 8% commodity increase. We did look at a few market forecasts and what they look like for the next 12 months, which is 6 to 10%. Most of those are natural gas because propane's not really as traded on the market forecast. So I had to look at LNG. So I'm proposing a 13% increase on the usage rates for propane to reflect market trends and a CPI combined. Water.
Can we comment below, or no?
If yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So on this one, so basically, market forecast is 6-10%, and here you have recommending 5 plus 8. So I just try to understand the logic here.
I think the commodity trend is different than the CPI trend, is what I'm saying.
I understand, but when the market forecast estimate for my boss, no?
The
Basically,
CPI
the commodity.
The CPI affects more than just our purchases. It affects all the other stuff that goes into propane. You're assuming commodities 100%, which it is not.
So I understand your logic. So basically, you are taking the average of what's market estimate forecast. And so my next question is, when you say 5%, that's in here. So we are putting a placeholder number, and whatever the CPI is going to be, is what's going to happen.
Correct. And this, like you just said, this is just a budget. This is just basically this is a guess. That's all a budget is. Yeah. So we will do the actual CPI once we get the June number, as we always do every year. Yeah. Those come out like mid-July.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions of what I've gone over so far, or should I just keep rolling? Okay. Water and wastewater are based on the rate study, so nothing there. Solid waste, we saw a fuel surcharge this year, and it's continuing, or last year, and it's continuing this year. So I added another 2% for the fuel surcharge that ACES is charging us, and on top of the CPI. So for a total of 7% in solid waste. Questions on that? Good. Snow removal. This is pending until snow removal shakes out. Just like every year, we won't know these numbers. So once we get to about May, we'll actually be able to put real numbers into this, but that's how it's always been because it's so variable.
So last year we said we prepared the budget first 50,000 repayment, so we are waiting to see yearly number to decide what.
Exactly. Salaries and wages, we're going to discuss this later, but it is a placeholder in here. That average merit of 5% and an average CPI of 5%. So anticipates both of those in the budget, depending on what happens in the later board topic. This can either be deleted or left in, but that's just where it is.
So the question here I would have for salary and wages is, so up to now we're using 5%, the CPI is much lower indeed. But now basically you are assuming a 5% CPI, you are projecting a 10% increase.
Yes.
In the past, the merit increase was averaging 5%.
That's the maximum it can be. It's been averaging between 3.8 and 4.2.
So why do you get 5 now?
Because it could be 5 and it's just a budget. We're drilling down into decimal dust on a $14 million budget.
I try to understand the logic.
Cushion of credit was depleted. That was depleted to pay off loan B8, so that's coming out. And we have the updated USDA loan. So just for clarification for those who didn't follow and or didn't know all the history, Doug had a really good question at finance about this, which is why are they so variable? And we have approximately 30 some loans that come due at different times, have different interest rates. And so this reflects 30 different loans, a conglomerate. This is a summation per year of what's happening. You will notice there are some big payoffs coming up in 2025. So whether we keep, roll those loans or pay them off right now, it's assumed to pay, as well as 2027. So that's what those big numbers are for the benefit of people that aren't intimately familiar with the original Out Valley. So
30 loans is good news. Every time we did a draw, we got a competitive rate.
Yeah.
And it gives us the flexibility to think on
right.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Yes.
yeah. One right there.
The COP, yeah, I'm very glad about this. This is the COP loan. This will be paid off the upcoming fiscal year. So another debt coming off, which is great.
So other question on this, let me ask you. So we have 1 more year to go. So this was used in part to actually pay for the water meter remote. So my question for finance committee is, when we finish paying this loan, will we change the meter fee?
We have to replace 10% of our meters every year, so I don't know why we would.
Yeah.
So the answer is no.
Uh,
We have to replace 10% per year.
I don't say remove it, I say change it. Hopefully, yes.
Our rate study used the 10% replacement as determining the meter charge. So
Okay.
the COP was elsewhere. It wasn't in the meter charge. It was in the fixed cost of the base rate, not the meter charge.
So you are saying that we are budgeting to replace 10% of the water meter every year?
And propane and electric.
Huh?
And propane and electric.
I'm talking about water.
But we do all three.
And so you have that level of attrition that you have.
That's what we aim to do every year. Yes. Yes.
So every 10 years.
Brand starting over. Yep. Okay. Bank of the West line of credit, that was paid off this year. So this is.
Well, I mean, I know it's not happening like that in my other location. I mean, 10 years seems to be a short time for water meter, for example. So why do you have to do it so often? Because of the altitude and ice, do you have more wear?
The conditions, the age, yeah. The Bank of the West line of credit was paid off and the lien was removed. So this just reflects that. It will drop off next year in the assumptions. And that's it.
One question on the CPR.
Mm-hmm.
Could we decide to take it as of June?
You'd have to redo the rate studies and the Prop 218 process to change the water and wastewater. The answer is yes, it could be done. However, if you do it, although I would recommend as we do rate studies, and maybe we can add this to the major projects thing, could we pick a different CPI month so that when we do the budget, we actually have a CPI we can actually plug in? Just a suggestion as we go down the road. We're going to do, as we do them on the major projects list, they each adopt a new. See, I got your back. Okay. Any questions? Let me look at the audience because this one's a little bit complicated. Nope, no hands up. I have to keep closing the participant list. I apologize because when things are wide, I can't see the whole screen. So nor can the board. So no hands up. Okay, good.
So we'll go on to the-
Actually, can we go ahead and adopt the assumptions so we can have them ready to go for the year, or with the exception of snow removal that'll be corrected?
Question, since we are going to adopt this, so I see the schedule for completion,
What are you looking at, Bertrand?
page 65.
You're on. Sorry, that's on we're not on that topic yet. Yeah. I was just asking for a motion to accept this minus snow removal.
So the motion is to accept.
Yeah, a motion to approve the. Robert? Robert?
There you
Yeah,
go.
thanks. I think I couldn't, sorry, thank you.
Just back to the issue that you are trying to resolve.
We finished
on the-
that? Yeah.
So when we do the final budget, we try to have a better handling on the base rate.
Yes, the base rate, independent of the CPI,
Yes.
we will have a better handle on the base rate. Yes.
5% for CPI now, you could do the same.
But no, we will, when we do the actual, Tommy and I are fully got this dialed in. When we do the actual budget, we will actually have the base rate number with the assumed 5% CPI, that the actual base rate. So if the CPI is off a little bit, that's what you'll see. But again, it's a budget.
Okay. Welcome back. Hello. First part?
Oh, sure. Well, this is your baby. Well, I'll go with the first part. So we've been working on this. I mean, for as long as I've been here, we've been working on this, whether it was the original committee that Eric Rickert put together, or the subsequent committee that John helped lead the charge on. And we've gone through every possible iteration of what we could possibly do. We've looked at everything, and we've came down to a special tax is the way to go, which is a Melrose / CFD for people that like that nomenclature. It would be a vote of registered voters, and it would be assessed on it would be assessed on almost every parcel in the district. We cannot assess state-owned property or federal property. Okay, so those are not assessed. That's a law. We can't assess them. So yes, there are. That's why I said not. I was going to say every parcel in the district, but that's not true. And I don't want to misspeak. So this would basically apportion benefit received using parking spot methodology, how many parking places there are. The model is basically done, and will be presented to the board at the March 3rd meeting. So I'm going to skip your stuff, Rick, and go to the end, and then I'll come back to yours. So I just do want to go to schedule because this is important. So they're going to build whatever model the board decides they want them to run. And you'll see which one Rick recommends, which is Model D, but they're going to run that. They will present that at a first hearing on March 3rd. By election law, they have to wait 30 days for a second hearing. So we need to have a special meeting in April as well, either on the 3rd or the 4th. Those are the only 2 days that work with election law. Then there will be a vote on July 3rd. We've already met with Alpine County. They've been very helpful. I know Terry's on here, but Teola and their new council, Charles McKee, we met with them. They were very, we're doing everything the way they want it. We'll pay them like we always do for the KMPUD elections, and they will certify within 30 days. They don't think they'll need 30 days, but we want to give them the full statutory requirement, which is 30 days, even though Teola is much more efficient than that. This just hedges our bets. If we hit the August 10th date, that means that this special tax will go on the September property tax bills. If we don't meet any of these dates, we will be 2 years out. So that's why this schedule is absolutely critical. So I'm done with my part. So any questions on my part, not Rick's part, not the models, anything else, but any questions on that?
I just want people to meetings, so these will be special board meetings. One's a week earlier, than I've asked, John to run, because I will be out of the country. And then, April 3rd and 4th are not Saturdays, they're other days.
Right, Monday and Tuesday respectively.
One thing where you confuse me, you talk about parking spot.
Yes, so the way they, so, yes, so basically they're trying to find a way that we could quantify benefit received. Okay. And how do you quantify benefit received? Right now, the only people that pay are the homes or the condos that, you know, buildings that are built, you know, that's who pays, not empty lots on the assessment as it exists. This basically says, okay, how do we quantify benefit received? And so they're doing it based on parking spots because that would quantify the guests in lot 7 or the people parking up in Red Cliffs. It quantifies that there's people receiving benefit that are not residents but are using the fire department.
Yeah, because I mean, there are many first, unimproved route does not contribute, which I think is available because the fire department protects everybody, including the undeveloped route. So
As they build, they would be assessed.
but actually, for KMA, there is many lots that have 0 parking spot. The HOA has parking spot, but not.
Right. So what that in those cases, what this quantifies is they have parking pads they use, correct?
Yeah, but they're owned by KMA.
Right. So we're not assessing the HOAs. The assumption is that every single family residence, and this will be presented. So we're actually getting ahead of where we are. But what they're assuming is every single family residence has 2 parking spots. Every condo has 1. And then the rest are, you know, like the Vail parking plan you would look at and those sorts of things. It's the most logical methodology. This has been run through our attorneys who believe that this is a defensible, logical methodology. And so what would happen in the case of those parking pads, the assumption is the single families have parking spots within those parking pads, but they do receive the benefit they will be assigned to. All single families will be treated equally.
And the vote has to be
2/3, correct. So that's that. So I'll go back to the model stuff, Rick, if you want to.
Yeah, so again, we're looking to, as Finance Committee reviewed as well, we're looking to give the consultants, the DTA consultants, 2 models to work with to develop this for your review at a later date. And so the 2 model, Eric's pulled the models up on the screen here. We believe C is kind of a hybrid where you have a full-time paid staff on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday with a stipend staff Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then model D is the full paid 2-member staff with a stipend volunteer or auxiliary firefighter for model D. And I can.
You want to talk about why model C, why you
Yeah.
pulled back from model C? I think that's important.
Between them, just the questions to understand.
Yes.
If I can. Is 1598 an hour or competitive rate to get out?
Yes, we surveyed adjacent. We did publicpay.gov and looked at all the firefighters, professional firefighters around us and what they pay. They make up all their money in the overtime is where it really comes in. And so, yes.
So that's my second question. They don't work 8 hours and go home.
So AFPD is 4 on, 3 off.
Yes.
That's their model, I believe.
Yeah.
And some fire departments are, 3 on, 4 off. It just depends.
They're here for the full 24 hours, 48 hours, or 96 hours.
They will be here 24/7. There will be 2 people here 24/7.
Okay, but they're physically here. But
Yes.
they're on for certain number of hours on and off. They're not driving around and coming.
No,
No,
they'll be relieved by another firefighter. That's how it is.
Okay, so that's the reason why.
There's so many numbers.
Earned income is more reasonable than what you would think from the base salary.
Right.
right.
And in either of these models,
So-
how does that work?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we are doing a contract service. We're not shutting the doors of KVFD. We are contracting out. We're contracting out with AFPD to provide the bodies. We still have our capital, we still have our firehouse, we still have our engines, we still have our brush truck. We have all those things. AFPD will just use those, use our fire quarters, but Rick will remain chief. They're working as a contract. This is a simpler way of saying it. Because I hired Stantec to do the wastewater treatment plant design doesn't mean I fired Derek, right? It's the same principle.
So the total budget then is this plus some portion of our current budget.
Yes, and this is included. These are included in the expenses. If you look at the expenses line, that is where our G&A, you know, Rick doesn't really bill anything to fire because we can't because of CalPERS rules. So this is our G&A is included in there. PPE, uniforms, if we're still having our own volunteers, et cetera. So that's
it's included in the next sheet of the expense.
no, it's if you're looking at the sheet that I have up on the screen, the line that says expenses.
I'm looking on my screen.
Yes, there's a behind the scenes numbers those are our KVFD expenses, not AFPD expenses, if that makes sense. There's just
There's just a line for expenses. This is there are worksheets for.
this is a roll up, but this is
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a roll up. So you can see our expenses in the very second to the last line, the 304,000 are significantly less because we're contracting out and it reduces a bunch of our costs. For example, 75,000 for PPE, 75,000 for training immediately pops out. So because AFPD will be doing those things. That's why expenses is 300,000 versus 500,000 in the other three models. Follow me, Bob?
Yes, I'm trying to get a sense of what's the change between what we currently have and what it would be in the future. So if we say 360 is kind of what we currently spend on fire safety.
Right.
And in this proposal, it would be more than under D, 4 times. 4 or 5 times.
D. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but it's also we're having professional firefighters, not volunteers, or
No, I realize
Yeah,
that it's just
from a pure number standpoint. Yep, exactly right. Over 5 times.
It's over 5 times, but I think it is, but the cost distribution, it would be different under the how that 5 times is all paid for would now be different, as well as the 5 times difference in cost. We're also changing how it is recovered. Is that correct?
Correct.
I was just going to suggest before we keep on with the questions to give Rick a chance to provide the overview.
And I just, again, want to remind the board, these are budget estimates. These are just numbers that we came up with to be able to provide to DTA, the consultants. As we get closer to presenting you with what we think it really will cost, I believe these numbers may come down. But for now, we need to give the models to them so they can start working up what the approximate cost would be per homeowner or per voter votes. And
You mean the AFPD cost may come down?
yes, the AFPD costs.
The other ones are not going to come down.
The expenses, the operation costs, those are all the capital, that's all going to remain the same. But again, there's different ways that we can do this with, if we contract with AFPD, where the EMT can be a probationary or auxiliary EMT firefighter, basically a reservist. It could be a full-time firefighter. It could be an engineer. I mean, we could change the model to what we think works, but we still need to reserve me as the fire chief, the unpaid fire chief, so to speak, as well as duty officers that could help and assist paid staff holding down the fort. because I don't expect an Amador Fire Protection District person or anybody that we hire to come up and know exactly where the alarm systems are, how to respond to an emergency, what the difference is between the east side and the west side, and all the things that we do, especially in the campgrounds on the highway. So we still will have a presence to assist and support staff.
And you want to talk about Model C, since we got interrupted?
Yes, unless there's any more questions about the two models, and again, we're looking for board direction on.
Question to understand and follow the conversation. First is, this is total cost, not additional cost.
Correct.
Okay, so we're talking about that's how much more money we need, this is how much money we need to
In
fund. So the second question is, currently, our budget is what?
360.
360. Okay, so you are basically, you have to come back with 360. That's number two question. Then I have a third question that could wait is basically, is there been an estimate of how much this tax would need to be able to, I mean, we are still talking about 1.5, 1.6, 1.5 million. So we are short about between 1 and 1.2 million. And is there an estimate on how much that tax will need to be?
That is what will be presented on March 3rd.
Not yet done.
We've seen some preliminaries, but it's not yet done. And the other thing I should mention too, and I really want you to get back to Model C. I apologize, you keep getting interrupted by me. We would rescind the existing ordinance on the per square footage assessment as part of this. So right now we have a per square foot that appears on everybody's monthly bill. That would go away, or at least we would recommend the board rescind that ordinance, assuming this passes. Correct. Correct, because that one's, yeah. And that's only by ordinance, so it can be rescinded by ordinance.
And so my next thing is.
Hold on, can we?
No, I try to understand, I can follow now. So you could talk, but then I have to ask my question. So model A is basically in-house.
Yeah.
Model B is a combination, model D is out.
A and B are in-house, C is both, and D is contract.
Yeah, I'm trying to get, it could be saying that somewhere.
It says, it literally says AFPD contract dash stipend, and then a Model D, AFPD contract.
I see in your text when you
I'd like to have.
So, you know, we started this staff report, and Eric and I worked on this together, of course, talking about the history. And back in 2005, this was the year before I actually was hired by the district to be the fire chief. We had numerous volunteers in the valley who lived here, who worked for the ski resort year round, and very active and wanted to help the community. But there was a problem where everybody assumed somebody else was going to the call. And we had a couple calls where no one went to the call. We said, well, we should create an on-call list that we put down in the fire bay and have at least 2 people sign up for a 24-hour shift. So we know that, hey, at the time it was Kevin Stein and Pete Tobacco. They're on call tonight, and then everybody else will support them. And if it's a structure fire, everybody seems to like to come to a structure fire. But if it's a smoke alarm in some meadows or somewhere, you know, some people don't like going to those, especially at 2 o'clock in the morning. So for $30, we paid the volunteers to basically sign up. And it was also an incentive for them to, you know, drive over here, put gas in their car. And that seemed to work for years. But as time went on, and as I've told the board and through the different committees that we've had about the fire department, it's becoming more and more challenging for me to find, one, people who live in Kirkwood right now. We have 1 volunteer on the fire department that lives here year round, full time. The balance of my crew, which fluctuates between 12 and 14 very eager people at the beginning of the winter, but by the time May hits, we go down to the same core group of 6 to 8 people. And again, the balance of the crew lives away from Kirkwood. And the reasons why they volunteer, even though they live away from Kirkwood, is one, they love Kirkwood, they love the community. Two, it gives them something for their resume. Some of my volunteers are fresh out of the academy, or they're in the EMT class now, or paramedic program, and they need time on their resumes to get hired full-time somewhere. And three, during the winter or during the summer after Caldor and the Tamarack fires, this community supported the counties. And that was a great experience for a lot of the volunteers, and they really enjoyed that. And their hope right now is that we'll be able to send out a Type 6 engine or a Type 3 engine on a strike team when they get paid separately. They're not paid by the district, they're paid by the OES or the state. But two, that the excitement of a wildland fire and being on strike teams is another reason why they're here helping us now. So my problem, as I told you back in July, is even though I've got a lot of great people, the skill set levels on half of them, they're learning to be firefighters. They have not gone through an academy. I do not trust them to go into a burning building with an air pack on. They're very great for support roles, and they're doing a great job for the community, but they don't have all the certifications and trainings that it's required to really do the job. So we're constantly training and trying to get people to a level where they can be a very competent person to be on call. And then the other side of that is they have full-time jobs. This is a volunteer job, but it's great to get a stipend. But if the resort, like during December and January, is completely buried and they're working 10, 12-hour days. One of my firefighters got up at 4:30 a.m. to go work on a snowcat up on top of Chair 10. He was on call for the fire department until the next day. He went on 4 different fire calls and was basically up for about 16 hours that day, not only helping his job at the community. So as you can imagine, it's going to be hard for him to come back the very next day and be on call again. So we try to increase the stipend. It seems to be working a little bit when we did that in July, August, September, but November, December, when the resort got busy and people have other lives, it resulted with me running essentially 40 calls from my home in Gardnerville, Nevada. And then we had 6 calls where, of the 46 of those, I was by myself. I was driving up here and responding to a call, and then hopefully beating the ambulance or the mutual aid that comes up and triaging the call. And so, you know, I don't think that's a great way to run a department. I think it's personally, it's been challenging for me, and I'm sorry, I'm wore out. I'm exhausted, but I'm still going to keep doing this, and I'm hoping there's a solution with the special tax. In the meantime, I think it's time for the board to consider how to fund paying for paid staff now, because hopefully we don't lose a structure with one person responding, or a loved one, or somebody in this community, because we're not there. So even though we sort of were pushing for a Model C during finance, in this last week, I've had to come up 2 times, and it's just, honestly, I need the support, I need the help now if we want to keep this fire department going.
And the response time could be 45 minutes, an hour, something like that, right?
If the pass is open.
Yeah.
So Rick, let me just say, we're asking you to have a young duty, the fact that you've done them, something I really appreciate. But it's not a plan going forward.
Correct. Thank you.
Either way.
I think we've tried everything we could think of in terms of getting volunteers to be reliable, and it made a small difference, but not one that I think is representative of the safety we'd like to be able to provide.
So with the Eric and board's permission, I'd like to seek out actual costs from Amateur Fire Protection District to provide 2 members now with our support. And once I get those numbers, we'll certainly bring it back to the board consideration for, I guess, finance committee to figure out how we would finance this in the interim. But, and I appreciate the board's support, and it's one of those things where I don't think the community understands the gravity of the situation, because we've always been able to maintain and kind of we've been able to deal with it. So for all these years, we've had some highs and lows, but I'm just at a point where I have no other options. And I think it's time that we make a change.
One question on Amazon, I mean, they have the resources available.
They're doing this for City of Plymouth and Lockwood Fire Protection District already. They're doing contract services for them. City of Plymouth folded their fire department and Lockwood folded theirs. I mean, Lockwood and the city still obviously exist. They're doing what we're proposing, which is to contract.
So they would demonstrate capacity to expand.
Yep.
Larger scale. Execute that larger scale.
And they already have their, sorry, John.
Without 100% resources.
And they already have their union contracts negotiated, which is something we would have to do. They already have their firefighter CalPERS set up, which is something we would have to do. Our overhead gets exorbitant, which isn't even estimated in here because we don't know how much it would cost. 100,000, 200,000, I don't know. But they already have the infrastructure in place, and yeah.
Okay. By no means am I trying to replace the volunteers I have. It's a great team. And if anything, this will give them, working side by side with somebody who's a paid professional, the training, the opportunities that our volunteers will learn, it'll be great. And they can understand whether they want to go full time as a firefighter as well. So
We're still have some volunteer positions available. We're just not depending on them.
yeah, correct.
They would be AFPD volunteers, essentially. We would merge them into that.
Yeah, their program. That way the SOPs and the protocols are all the same, but we're not trying to dissolve the fire department. We're trying to basically
Improve.
current conditions. So.
Any questions then?
Decided by registered voters,
Yes.
and how far in advance would we announce the election? Because people
Understood. And this is why on communications committee, this is the topic we have coming up, is the only topic. So we cannot advocate for this tax. All we can do is put out a factual pamphlet. So people are aware. What other members of the community that are interested in this do in terms of advocacy is up to them. I will admonish board members cannot be involved in that, even if it's a different group. It's not good. But we will prepare a factual paper on this with the information. We will relay the information Rick has conveyed about our volunteers and response times. That is factual. We will relay the costs, approximate cost per parking spot assigned. We will relay those things. That's what communications will do. But we will not advocate for it. But yes, so this, I would imagine after communications has their teeth into it this month, we should have something ready to go to the board for discussion in terms of a factual, after we get the DTA proposal and the board approves it, then we would actually have numbers to go out with. And so then March communications would sharpen its pencils and finish the communication, and it would go out in March.
How far in advance do you- First hearing is March 3rd.
Uh-huh.
How far in advance?
Yeah, it'd just be a normal, it's just the normal noticing process. It's 72 hours, 72 hours.
My question related to advocating here. So not only the district as an entity cannot advocate, but I suppose the board member either.
Yes,
We cannot.
not in your official capacity, correct. Yeah, nor can Rick or I. We can't there's been a lot of lawsuits about this very topic, and district council, our bond council, Moss Adams, who we use for our bond stuff. They just did the co-bank and USDA. They were very clear with us on our call of what we can and cannot do. And they said having board members involved in an advocacy group looks very bad, and we should make sure and alert you to it, which I have now done. So
my next point, which doesn't change, I think the process that you want to go through the hearings, is I don't think we should give up, especially for Amara. I think actually I'd be interested to compare what they do for Plymouth on tax allocation compared to what they do for us in Fleetwood. My point is, even if we go forward in that process, we should still actually present the case again and again to the counties so they actually, because if 1.2 million extra, even a current property allocation will not be sufficient.
you mean property taxes?
I'm talking about the county tax, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we went down that path with the counties. They have,
I know, but I think we need to keep doing it. That's my point. Is once we actually go through this process and show that the cost that we have, we should actually go to the counties and ask them to contribute.
and we have done that.
Yeah.
We've done that multiple times.
But we have no specific numbers.
Oh, we did have specific numbers.
I said that multiple times. They have no.
No, I understand, but if you do it for other places, like I said, Plymouth, and
But they don't.
Yeah, you're not.
What I'm asking, let's check what kind of tax allocation Plymouth is getting compared to us for Amara
Plymouth is a city. They get the property taxes within their city
directly.
because they're a city.
So the county, yeah.
No, not but. They're a city. It's not the
What
same.
I'm saying is, yes, they get their tax allocation directly. That's represent current for us because we are unincorporated. The county is getting the money.
Correct.
Direct, and they just give us what they want back.
They give us what was negotiated during the LAFCO formation of the district. It was a negotiated percent. That varies from county to county,
But
but
ours is 20. Oh, for Alpine.
right. It's
I want to keep this focused. I think our goal for today is to decide what data we want to provide for the March 3rd area. There's lots of other things discussed that can be done. And I'd like to finish this topic if we can. And so the recommendation to make this model D should be handed out for the analysis.
D, yes, correct.
So I will come.
Bob, can I motion that we move with model D, please?
I know, there's motion for accepting now, please go ahead. There's a motion for approved model D.
Okay. So in this proposal that you have, so you have actually scheduled EMT. So does that mean that we would be able to have an ambulance outside, or
No.
still not sufficient to be able to do that?
This would be a BLS, and this would be an EMT, I'm sorry.
no ambulance.
No ambulance.
No ambulance.
Different requirements for ambulance.
You have to pull the ambulance from whatever.
However, Amateur Fire Protection District just recently has been given authorization to start an ALS service. So that could be a possibility in the future. It'll be an added cost, but they are in the process right now of getting paramedic service in Anne Arundel County. And they're looking for an ambulance. So if anybody wants to donate an ambulance to them, happy to get it. But for this would be an EMT.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, we have a motion. Okay, Epstein? Aye. Schroeder? Aye. Earl? Aye. Drummond?
Aye.
Okay. Rick, again, I want to express our thanks for what you've done this year. All right, next item G, annual and our retroactive CPI adjustment.
Want to take us from personnel, or you want me to lead it, Bob? I'm happy to do it if you like. Sure. So personnel met to discuss basically, CPI adjustments, since we've historically not done them independent CPIs. We've always done just a merit. And in looking at this, we did the salary survey, as the board will remember. We had about 22 comparative agencies. So I just did a quick spot check of 5 of those. The closest ones is what I really looked at, just to see if their salary ranges were still the same. They all had jumped by about 8 to 10% since I had looked at it, and that wasn't that long ago. I think it was last January. So they jumped substantively, and I talked to a few of the general managers of those entities that I know, and it was all related to CPI. That was what they did because of purchasing power and all that. So that was their big thing. Personnel discussed a few things and to bring to the board. Should we consider a CPI increase for current full-time employees? If so, should it be 6.8%, which is what we adjusted all our rates this year with? And if so, should it be at the next payroll? And then annually, should the board consider, and you saw it in the budget assumption, should the board annually consider a CPI increase? And if so, should it be independent, the CPI be independent? So for example, if the annual merit ranges from 0 to 5, if we look back at June of 22, would the range of increase for an employee be 0 to 13.8, or would they be independent of each other, an automatic 6.8 and then a 0 to 5? And those are kind of the questions we raised. The financial impact would be an additional $80,000 this fiscal year. And then assuming a 5% CPI, as you saw in the budget assumptions, 140,000. So, and that's incorrect. That should be 70,000 because that combined to the CPI plus merit. So CPI plus merit, it's combined would be 140.
What I believe is recommended is combined 0 and 13.3. We didn't want to have the 5% and 6.8 separated. And not to go retroactive, I believe.
Right, so the proposal is that this would affect the next payroll. Yeah.
Correct.
So we're recommending that as a matter of fairness to the employees and looking at where the situation is. I actually think that it's helpful from a budgeting purpose to budget a CPI increase. It isn't automatic. It's still based on employee one level of performance and budget and merit, and then discretionary how it's applied to each employee. Neither of them are automatic. So that's what the person.
Eric, could you repeat that for me? I want to make sure I heard what Bob was
Sure.
saying there.
So if you look at the staff report, so there were 2 recommendations that came out of personnel. One was that the CPI of 6.8 be applied at the next payroll cycle. That's point 1. Point 2, with the next performance review period, that the range of salary increase if we were using the 6.8, for example, that the range of increase an employee could realize is between 0 and 13.8%, using last year as an example. Obviously, the CPI will change from year to year. Those are the 2 recommendations. Does that make sense, Doug?
Thanks. Yes. Can I comment on one of those?
Yeah.
Yes.
Employee is on a homes plan, not automatically entitled to this.
Did you hear that, Doug?
Nope.
The intent was that if someone was performing poorly or on a performance improvement plan, that they not be automatically entitled to the full CPI, which is why the range would go from 0 to merit plus CPI.
Right. I guess my instinct in response to that is that CPI, I mean, they still get paid their salary while they're on that performance plan, right? As is, correct?
Yes.
So if CPI to me is the cost of living, I'm not sure why you would treat them. You basically be punishing someone for performance for the cost of doing a job that exists. And I feel like you would be using a merit to justify the cost of the economy. And that seems wrong to me as my initial reaction to that. So I guess my initial thought was that these should be separate and that merit should be merit and that cost of a position, you know, if in your example, if someone's on performance improvement plan and they were relieved of duty, we would turn around and post the job posting 2 days later with whatever they were making plus 6.8%. I don't know. That just seems I don't know, unfair in some ways. I mean, I understand they're on a performance plan, but they're two different topics to me. So that's my reaction to that.
Can you hear me at all or no?
You can try this one, see if it does any better.
Can you hear me now?
It's better.
The argument is that the manager has the discretion if for some reason they don't feel that it's justified because of they have that discretion as opposed to it's mandatory that you must not.
Yeah, but the logic of it is due to cost of CPI increase, and I just don't understand why we are using that logic and then after we remove the well, I'm like Doug, I think it's just
But we can vote on that separately.
And then if you have to, if you have to replace that person, the wage doesn't recommend cost of living.
Yeah, it's still a range. The job salary range is independent of whether the current person gets a CPI increase or not. So that doesn't change.
Yeah, I've running companies. I never had an entitlement to the CPI increase on an annual basis for all employees. We would fill the CPI increases for rate. We're saying here, right? We're saying, hey, our rate has to be bigger this year because beyond merit, we've got high inflation. And then we have the manager's discretion to allocate those back to the employees. We would just go and say we're going to give everything in the company 6.8% raise, and then only have merit at 5%. Right? So I think I just literally in the past we did.
John, it's not abnormal, and my experience is now what having them separate is not abnormal either. So I'm sure a lot of companies do that, but it's not unheard of in the private industry to do it as two separate concepts either. So I just don't want to make sure it's not like it's unheard of. Whether it's common or not, or fair, I think would be the question.
I'm zero.
Okay.
Question that I brought up also.
All right, so let's we vote on these as separate items. Motion that I would make is to authorize a 6% increase,
6.8.
6.8% implemented at the next April.
Eric, can you repeat the motion, please, for me?
The motion is to implement a 6.8 salary increase effective next payroll cycle.
Thank you. I'll second that.
clarification on that is the current number for the CPI, or that change every month?
It's the one we used for the rate increases this year.
Okay, so
It-
that's why I'm confused when-
It's mirroring our rate CPI. We're using the same one.
I understand. So
Well, if you
that's
understand,
why
don't you ask me?
we do it at the next, was that
2 weeks.
fiscal year?
No.
Next payroll.
Next payroll.
We have two charts here. Doing it at the beginning of the fiscal year, is that correct? And doing it next payroll.
We're getting echo now. That was a good try.
I thought it,
So if we do it next payroll, we will do it again next July. That's my concern.
Yes. So if we do it, it would be the different CPI, whatever that one is. This is recognizing that if this is a thing we should do, realistically, we should have done it in July 1st of last year.
That's right. We've been underpaying
So
staff basically
1
for the
year
last
ago, not
8
20
months
years
or
ago.
whatever. Yeah. Relative to CPI, we've been underpaying
So
staff.
basically we're recognizing that if we've not kept salaries up with inflation for the last 8 months, and we're going to try and do it for the next 4.
So that if we had done it last July, what was the CPI?
6.8%.
So that's my question.
This is the one.
It was last July, not today, correct?
Correct. There was a second from Doug.
Yes, I did second it.
The motion is to affect the 6.8% cost of living increase effective the next year. All right, yes, aye. Gordon? Aye.
Aye.
Doug?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. The next is to implement a CPI and a CPI and
Independently of the merit increase. Or not.
like to make a-
Yeah, or that, because you are, if you want to do it, can you hear us?
Doug, do you want to make a motion on the second part?
Sure. I will motion to have the CPI and merit adjusted independently each year.
Independently of the merit increase.
Correct. CPI increase and the merit increase would be considered separately as opposed to a single range.
And if I may suggest, if you're to add to your motion, Doug,
Please.
that the CPI utilized shall be the same CPI utilized as our rate structure.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with the amendment that Eric just made to that motion. Thank you.
I second.
I'm just trying to understand.
The CPI,
Range allowed by the.
the way he said independently, so the
There would be, the
CPI,
CPI would be based on what the rate increases that would be applied automatically. The 0 to 5% merit would be discretionary by the manager or whatever process we go through today. That is my motion. Eric, are there any clarifications on that would be helpful?
I think it's clear what your motion is.
Thank you.
I mean, you could put a cap on it too, if you wanted to, on the CPI, if there's concern about the automatic, you could cap it. It's done. I mean, it's done. It's been done. I've seen it done, but
But you think that
I mean, I don't know why we would, other than it's, I don't know, like 5 years ago, if you would have said 3% is the cap of it, and now we're at 6.8%, I'd be sitting here saying, why are we not keeping up with CPI? I don't know. So I I don't see I mean, it's expensive to keep staff on board, and all this is doing is saying this is doing the bare minimum to keep them level with the cost of their current salaries. And I think that should be applied, and it's expensive for us to do that. I understand that there's a cost to this. It'll impact our rates and everything, but I don't know. I think this is what the right thing to do is.
I've never worked in an organization that guaranteed it. Ever.
No, I've never seen that.
I've never
Takes
seen
pay
that.
performance.
There's always the possibility that you wouldn't want to have this. And so to say that every manager is required to guarantee a kind of increase to every employee. No sense. That's not.
Well, I'm just telling you, Microsoft and all. They don't do it.
So, but anyway, it doesn't most come close. And we'll start.
Yes.
The vote, do you want more discussion?
But the discussion is happening now.
Well, yeah, I don't understand the example of you did it here years ago and in that distance, doing it as a free. Motivator to. Why did DB keep doing that? Right, because he decided it was a bad idea. I'd rather have something like Eric, even performance to. Well, it's not. Yeah, payroll administration. Period, you create a larger rate pool. It doesn't say you're gonna give a mandatory increase to every employee. I've never seen that anywhere. I've been in a lot of big companies, little companies. If you guys want to vote for it, you can, but it's a management mistake. It's gonna take a toll over his time.
And I will say from my perspective, I agree with John, because we need the ability to reflect performance raises as performance raises, to automatically have, and sometimes CPA is going to be 1%. I get that. It's not going to be a big incentive, but if your CPI is bigger than your merit, what's your incentive to perform? So from a management perspective, and I don't know that I speak for Rick or Brandy or Tommy, but from my perspective as a general manager, I prefer the combined, but that's my perspective.
My concern is kind of philosophic. I mean, we say we need to increase the salary to basically guarantee same living wage to the employees. So basically, and so that's the reason why we do it. And now we are saying, oh, but this is now going to be just based on merit. And so you can have it both ways. Either it's a CPI or it's a merit. But don't go CPI and then do it based on merit.
Okay, so then maybe the motion should be to make the merit range equal to 5% plus the CPI.
That's the problem.
Sorry.
And I don't know how much salary administration. So, but anyway.
No point in the CPI increases. Break even.
But they,
And they're motivated to stay.
Yeah.
Even if they don't get a merit.
Mandating it. Why are you mandating a larger raise for the employee, regardless of the performance? Why is that?
So they're not losing ground on the economy. Basic cost of living.
It's the cost of living.
Otherwise, why have a CPI?
Yeah.
I mean, I will venture this to meet a middle ground. I would amend my motion to put a cap on it for the temporary at like whatever 2% maybe on the CPI side of it, if that makes you feel better. But that's something I would consider. But I think it's Peter, and I don't know. I just said it's like there's nothing to do with merit. This is and I think there are, if from a managerial perspective, if this is the only lever we have to influence people, or this is the main influence of like people think they're going to get a couple percent automatically every year, then I think from a managerial perspective, like how are you managing when that hits, or when do you put your performance improvement plans in place if you don't want to pay them that improvement? how do you manage that to influence it? And I don't know, I think there are other ways around. We're paying people money for doing a bad job. I'd like to think better of staff than that. And there are ways to make sure that that doesn't happen. I think that don't have to do with keeping the cost of living associated with the salaries that we're paying. So I would be willing to put a cap on it to start, and then we could revisit this in the future. So like, I don't know, 2% CPI, up to 2%, something like that.
It's not that. It wasn't that. It's not that.
I agree with that.
You're
I
renting
know
this
some company doing it.
Well, 2% of companies do it. That doesn't make it the norm.
Okay.
It's probably because it's not a good idea.
I mean, first we have a motion and we should just vote on it, but I actually want to add this comment is if we were going to lump the two together, I don't think we should do it. We should call it the CPI increase, number one, and number two, I would definitely cap it.
If I could suggest, why don't we wait and see what the CPI is that comes out?
I was just about to say. This particular thing
July
is not
15th.
sensitive, and we need to suggest, right,
I'd like to see one more time.
and discuss it at the next. If it's okay with people, then I'll vote out until the next. Meeting. So would you be willing to?
Yeah.
Defer? Or you want to insist on?
Do you want to vote or do you want to defer, Doug?
Because we.
And the reason to defer is because we're going to get a different CPI number next month. Is that what I heard correctly?
We would get a CPI around July 15th is when it usually comes out. July 15th to July 20th is generally when the Department of Labor Statistics CPI comes out.
And so what benefit would that have for us to wait? Or what information? So suppose it's not 6.8, it's 2.
Right.
Would that change people's decisions on the structure of this? Or if it's 9, would like what would that change in terms of people's perspectives on this?
A chance to revise
And your cap, I think, Doug, would reflect what your cap might be considered.
I think we should.
Okay. I mean, sure. If that's, I withdraw my motion. Sure.
So there's no motion. Defer the rest of this.
CPI increase.
That's right.
That's not affected by this.
No, that's already. I'm recommending that on the rest of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That and my recommendation is to, if you want to combine these things, cap it because there is a limit of how much.
Okay. We'll send it out to We'll do it. Okay, let's move on to item H then. Wastewater department staff. Ready?
Thank you. So for this item, I wanted to bring to the board's attention a potential issue that we have at the wastewater plant, and that's a staffing issue. So last year about this time, we reorganized water, wastewater, solid waste into 2 departments, and we gave them 2 people each. And for water, solid waste, that seems completely adequate. They are able to maintain normal operations. We have plenty of coverage for weekends and that sort of thing for our staff. But for the wastewater department, the 2 people, we're having trouble keeping up with the increase in labor that's being required just to maintain and operate the equipment as it stands in the plant. And as you all know, it's an aging plant. We're in the middle of this startup for refurbishing the plant. Starting this year. We actually have a site visit with Stantec next week, but we are just having labor issues, a shortage of labor issues in wastewater. So staff recommends that we go out to hire an additional wastewater operator at the grade 3 level to start advertising for this immediately. So a grade 3 level is what we need to legally operate the plant. This would give us redundancy it would give someone an opportunity to come in at the level that we need them to be licensed at and see the new plant and all the refurbishment going in. And so that is staff's recommendation. This is a sizable salary impact to the department. So depending on what range we're able to get them in, we're looking at $111,000 to $139,000 based on the most recent salary survey, which did not take into account your last agenda item. So this would definitely be something we would want to consider at the 2025 wastewater rate study, but it is something that for the continued operation of our plant, as we get through this period where we still need to operate the old equipment, and as we bring new equipment online and all of the additional labor that is going to entail, staff feels that this is necessary.
Any questions for him?
So my first question is, actually, just reposition ourselves in the timeline here. We used to be 3 people doing both water and wastewater. And we actually increased the headcount by 1 to 2 and 2. And so I'm saying that despite this increase basically cannot keep up with the work, and we also advertise this as a level 3, and I just wonder why do we need so much more compared to what we were doing just a year ago?
The age of the plant, the good thing with 3 doing both, we always had probably 2 people on mountain. We only have 1 person on mountain a lot of times now for wastewater. And the plant is aging and causing a lot more work. And we need a licensed operator to really be on mountain at all times. Anything you want to add, Brandy?
My only other comment is that for years we've been working on a process where we try to hire people at lower levels and encourage them to get the certifications, as they work here. And that really hasn't worked out well for us. Since I've been here, we've never had anybody start at a lower level and get up to a grade 3 and stay. So having another license come in the door rather than someone that we hope will get to that point is another reason why, we'll have them right away. They can cover days off and vacations and provide the labor that we need right now.
But the fact is, as a valley, we are not growing, and I'm just surprised. So maybe we need to combine back again the wastewater and water and have 4 people doing both of these things. But like a steep increase again, and I'm concerned on the impact on the utility bills or people.
Are there other questions for them?
Likelihood that full-time and operator 3, would you be willing to go with an operator 2?
We'll let you know after we advertise. And my crystal ball is not so good.
Brandy explained why the workload's higher to answer her client's question. You're right, we don't have an additional plant, we don't have growth in the valley, so why is the workload higher than what? And give some examples.
Yeah. Why the work? Did you hear that, Brandy?
I'm sorry.
Okay, so why is the workload higher? And can we give some examples? Sure. We've had pretty much nonstop, and Rick can chime in too. Nonstop issues with the centrifuge that's requiring constant manipulation, running in hand mode. It's not running in auto. They had to replumb it because the pump went out. We've had blowers go out that are programming stuff that's been a nightmare for us. Whether it's in the east lift of the Aqua Sierra trying to get that running again, or whether it's the main lift. It's just the plant is 40 years old. The can has been kicked down the road so long. That's why we're doing the rehabilitation project. But it's becoming significantly more labor intensive. The other component is, there's a lot of things that we need to do outside of the plant itself in the collection system as well as in the lift stations. If we had the extra body present, there's a lot of that stuff we could do in-house instead of paying prevailing wage, which is top end union wage, to have a contractor come in and do that work, smoke testing, videoing, those things that we have the equipment to do. We just don't have the time to do it. So it's just aging infrastructure. Those are your examples.
So two comments on that. One is, would you expect the workload to go down once the plant's refurbished?
No, because then we would shift over to the collection side of things. That really has, again, deferred maintenance for 40 years. We got to catch up on this at some point.
And then you mentioned that appointing contracting, rough figure of what that would amount to.
I mean,
To offset the cost of the first.
we have how long is that section of line we were going to replace, Rick? 120 feet?
120.
120 foot section of line between two manholes that has had three spills since I've been here. Down, well, I won't say where. We've reported them as appropriate. We've had 3 spills in this one area from this thing. To get a contractor to come in and do that work would probably cost us probably $50,000. I'm upping the engineer's estimate from when he developed the bid set of plans or the design build set of plans. To do that in-house would probably be 2 weeks worth of work for a full crew. That's not $50,000.
Yeah, and one more thing is that maybe Brandy didn't identify. Wastewater is a little unique. There's a lot of activities where you need a minimum of 2 people to complete the task. For example, going down into the east lift and checking the east lift, which they should be doing daily. When someone calls in sick or someone's on vacation or at training, we've been relying on other staff who are not qualified and really shouldn't be there doing that. Another example is if we lose one of the membrane pumps, or we need to pull a pump from the lower lift, main lift, and one of the contact basins. It's a 2-person job, and really you need 2 wastewaters doing this position inside the treatment plant, and not having me, which I've done a couple times. You can call me an OIT at times, but yeah, we learned that really need 3 people to hold down the fort in wastewater. And when things go bad in wastewater, they go really bad. We have an operator right now who's physically moving sludge with bags of sludge into a sludge bin just to get us through the winter, because we don't want to spend or hire a consultant at an emergency contract price to come in and try to resolve the issue. We're going to resolve the issue in-house, but it's very labor intensive. And these are areas that we think this job will pay for itself versus going out to bid and trying to do emergency work.
And I would remind the board that when we did have water talent come in briefly to help us out, what were we paying per month on that? I think we were paying like, it was like 35,000 per month that we were paying is what it worked out to be. Yeah, it was about 8,000 per week. Yeah, that's right, about 32,000.
Randy, there's a suggestion by Peter that provide some flexibility, so it could be operator 2 or 3. Does that help you, or would you rather not?
I'm sorry, can you
No,
repeat?
sorry. He's asking if it could be an operator 2 or 3, and the answer is no. We need the licensure for the level 3.
And so, fact that we are going to future, hopefully not so distant, have this plant rehabilitated. So maybe we should, since we are doing the job a year ago with just 3 people for both wastewater and water, why can't we, maybe we should combine this department together again for the meantime, and because hopefully this is a temporary situation here. We're talking about because the wastewater plant is going to be rehabilitated.
I don't think that that gives, I mean, if we combine the two departments, there would still be a need for additional labor. You know, it's not out of the realm of possibility that one day we decide to go back to the combined structure. But when we were running it with 3 people, we had a lot of input from other departments, trying to kind of fill in the void, fill in the absences. And we also have less people living on the mountain. So I think that emphasizing that we need a new position and we need that new position to live on the mountain in our hiring attempt is very important for us.
I think that we accept this authorized increase.
And second. Okay, vote.
Before we vote, Eric, can you repeat what the motion was? I did not understand.
The motion was to authorize staff to advertise and hire an additional wastewater operator 3.
Thank you.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain because I think
Just no abstain.
steep increase for temporary situation, so I will prepare alternative.
Mr. Randall?
Aye.
Okay. All right, next item. Anything out of personnel, and this is item I, remote work and CSP, they're related. They're trying to ask about the CSP last meeting. So first of all, the personnel committee's been working with management and because right now we have remote work when people and it's limited what they're to do because of equipment and software availability. We think it's desirable to allow managers at their discretion to allow additional work days from remote facilities. We think that will increase the ability to hire, and I think this is most likely, it's exclusively going to be. So obviously you can't operate.
Remote controls, hold on.
I don't think creatively enough. So this is primarily in the front office and commons area. So this would give management the discretion to offer days work from home that do not require a task to be closed. And it would also authorize the appropriate equipment with proper security so they could do their jobs from home. So that's the suggestion that we enable staff to work that way. And in addition to looking at the customer service building itself over the last several years, a lot of things have moved to be able to be worked remotely. So there's very little traffic coming through. We used to have 2 people at the window there who could monitor people coming out. Now it's somewhere between 0 and 1. So it's worked well to have people just ring the doorbell and then to let them in. Propose them to continue to operate that way, particularly as we have less front office staff that are physically. So those are the 2.
The one thing I would add to that, Bob, is during recent interviews, and Tommy, I think, can attest to this, and Rick as well, it's been a common inquiry. Do you permit remote work? Because everyone else is. So it's been a pretty common inquiry, and it also goes to the district's attractiveness in terms of as an employer.
I would motion to accept this recommendation.
Oh,
Now we have, there's a motion.
so, I mean, that surprised me a bit because public utilities is not something we can do most of the time remotely, and so I'm just hoping that this will become a ghost district. But so I'm not opposed to the concept of doing. We are discussing one, giving a bit more flexibility to manager for extending remote work clearly is going to be limited to people that are not manning equipment. So I could go along with that. And then the next thing is to minimize having people at the reception here to speak require having people to ring at the bell downstairs. That's something I can work with as well. But I'm really, and that was part of what I'm trying to achieve here, is to make sure that this building become again available to the community, so we could come and meet people at the office by ringing. Number one. Number two, actually I've been approached by KMPUD. They would love to be able to use again the community building that room specifically for meetings like it used to be available in the past. So basically, not shutter anymore that building, but let the community that actually pay for it be able to access it. Touring, I'm fine with that, and make sure that we offer the same kind of facilities to the community for this building as well. So I have not seen that in this proposal. So that's the concern I have.
The one thing I would say is previously when that was open, we had cleaners that would come to the district. We have been trying to hire cleaners for 4 years now. None of the local cleaners will clean the district building. I have no idea why. I told them we would pay a premium. So you have Tommy vacuuming, you have Rick taking down trash, you have me cleaning toilets. That's a really expensive cleaning service, and quite frankly, I won't say which HOAs, but a lot of them have left the building in pretty poor shape when they leave. We don't have anyone to do the cleaning like we did in the olden days. And so, yeah, I would recommend that we do not start renting out the building again for that reason.
Well, I mean, if we rented it out, there should be a premium that they would have to pay for cleaning or something like that. That's independent of our standard cleaning service or something. I mean, whatever.
That assumes I can get a cleaner. I can't get a cleaner.
Well, they need to get a cleaner. And then,
yeah, good luck. Peter had a question, which what about TriTac? That's a public meeting. That's already in there. Are they a governmental entity? And they don't, and those ones were here because those were during business hours as well. And that conference room, and left the kitchen in disarray.
In case get a bigger deposit, I don't know. It sounds like this room could be used by the community to pay for it. Not for anything. I'm talking about HOA that wants to do a meeting and stuff like that. And if there was past incident, definitively can prove the system. So yeah, like hiring someone and whatever the price and doing it.
Suggest that this topic related to staff and staff functions.
Yeah, so my next concern is I see we need to buy more hardware, software, and so there is another cost to the thing. And as I said earlier, our utilities have never been so expensive. It's true everywhere. But we keep adding to it, adding. At some point, we are going to lose people in this fight if we keep doing that.
Any other comments?
Oh, I know the government's community service. I'd like to see us more open. But in the community,
I'm just suggesting that renting, no cost amount, go to the community is a separate topic than this one. And I'd be happy to To agendize it for another time, but not at corresponding on Friday.
Yeah, it was nice to be able to.
Yeah. So can we just agree to make that a topic for next?
Sure, okay.
And not.
Eric, can you summarize what was just said, please?
That the issue of renting out the CSB would be brought back at a later date.
Thank you. Do I need to amend my motion then?
No, because it wasn't it's not related to the topic that we're currently on.
Thanks. So my motion still stands and there was a second, if I remember. Is that right?
John seconded, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
The final item in session 9 was the board had requested looking at the revision to the rate structure to allow for exceptions. And Eric has brought that language that would be.
Yes, and this has been greatly bled upon by district council. So forgive all the legalese, but it's I defer to him. But this has to do with the appeal process for unique, demonstrable, and quantifiable circumstances that a reasonable person justifies a change in their current AMU. And then talks about the petition, the fees, the forms, everything's in there. So I presume everyone read it.
Yeah, my problem is we just got that yesterday, and it is actually fairly complex in thinking. I would ask to report that to next board meeting if it's possible. So we have time to think about unintended consequences. It was too short. I mean, I just got that thing yesterday. I just gonna go through it in a careful manner.
I mean, I would generally agree with Bertrand that having a little bit more time with the documents is helpful. I did have enough opportunity to read it, so I would be comfortable moving forward with it as I've read it. And the conversation, I think it reflects the conversations we had at previous meetings and planning, and as well as the full board. So I think I don't disagree with Bertrand, your point, but I do, in this case, feel comfortable with it, and I would be comfortable moving forward to adopt. But that's just my opinion. So
Same opinion. So if you want to defer, we can defer, but I could vote in favor today.
I had one about implementing it as the programmer who implemented this one. I don't know if somebody did this AMUs, and it's because they're not the previous owner, they might be. So this is a different situation. Is it clear to you how you would calculate the AMU this time?
Right. So basically,
Eric, can you restate that and then
yeah,
answer?
sorry. I'm going to try and restate it. I don't think I'm going to get it all, but I will do my best. How would we implement this practically is basically the short version. How would we do that? So, and Bob's question, I think, which is probably the more poignant of the point in there, is current new customers, if they came in May, blend 2 months or the prior owner plus theirs, right? That's how we do it now. So we're talking about a new beginning year. So I would, if you look at AMU for the first year, would utilize a new beginning year selected by the customer, but no earlier than April 1st. You wouldn't get half years. It would only be whole years. That would make your programming implementation. They couldn't pick a day to start in July. So you wouldn't have to do a blend. Correct, because that would be part of the requirement, is that they have a unique, demonstrable, and quantifiable year. My
question would it be helpful to include in this that the final calculation must include at least the full AMU of the customer's usage? Otherwise, it includes the previous customers. Yeah.
No,
Sorry, can you say that, Eric? What Bob just said?
no, no, I can't, because I was thinking, sorry. They couldn't utilize a prior customer. They would have to be a unique demonstrable. If you're saying, in my mind, if you're saying that I've made a unique change to me, why would you get to use a prior customer? So I would reject that as the discretion. And we require on number II, that it be a new year beginning selected no earlier than April 1st. So that way there's never a partial AMU year or a blended calculation.
But that's funny, it can't be any earlier than that. It could be February 2023. I'm not saying that
Sorry.
makes any sense, but I'm saying I'd like to know that.
The AMU calculation would utilize a new year beginning selected by the customer no later than April 1st, 2022. Each subsequent AMU be calculated till there are 3 full years of usage, at which time that we noted as said above. So the way, in my mind, what this is, they have to pick an AMU year to start, which means you have to have a full year.
If it said you have to have at least one full AMU year, I would know how to.
Okay, so amend 2I. Say the form shall permit the customer to recommence a 3-year AMU calculation beginning with a full AMU year.
Yeah. And you said April 2022. Did you mean that, or it's
I
written
meant
2020?
2020. I apologize, Doug.
Okay.
I should have said 2020.
Okay.
So
And then, but Eric, I think one other thing that you said there is they have to have demonstrable change for an entire year, but that's not exactly how I was interpreting or reading this. So that if a customer, say, had, some construction project that happened for 3 months, that would massively bloat their AMU calculation. That would, I don't remember reading anything in here that would prevent that from being part of the petition, even though that massive change, or if they made a very significant change, that would not necessarily be required to happen over 12 months of a full AMU year. Am I correct?
right, but I would argue that unique demonstrable would be a full year. And in that case, the case specifically you're citing, we would start, and so that was 2 years ago. So we would look at last year in that case. They could start with last year as the year they want to say is their unique demonstrable year, starting April 1 of.
Correct. I guess what I'm saying is that the deviations in usage do not have to necessarily persist over 12 contiguous months in an AMU year.
I would argue that unique and demonstrable would mean yes, they do. Demonstrable would be permanent. Otherwise, otherwise I could just not do something for 3 months and say, oh, look here. No, it's demonstrable. Otherwise it's not a permanent reduction, right?
I'm less thinking about that case as opposed to.
They would just start over once that was done. So that's easy.
I'm thinking of customers who do a bunch of construction in their first AMU year, who are having an atypical amount of usage that is not consistent with might happen over 6 months of the year, and then returns to what will be more consistent with their typical AMU, and then that AMU persists for 18 more months or whatever.
Right.
That to me is a demonstrable significant change that was not related to the AMU's intent, which is typical usage. So that, to me, and I guess maybe this will come up in the details where someone will file it and then you will say no, and then it comes to a petition to the board and we'll talk about it as a board and we'll vote on it there. And maybe that's a nuance that isn't relevant to as written. I want to make sure it's not written to preclude or state that something has to happen for 12 contiguous AMU months personally. I didn't read that in here, but you said it. So I want to make sure that.
I know you can't hear me. That's not what I said.
I'm not saying what you said, Bob.
So we have the time to understand each other. I also think, just based on what Doug said, I don't think there should be a fee for the appeal. I don't see any fee concept in the bill itself, in the ordinance itself. And in here, I mean, I'm not opposed to a petition fee, but I think once you petition the fee, you basically part of the service is you should be able to appeal to the board without additional expenses, in my opinion. So, I think that I would, because otherwise, already $300 tend to push people away. I mean, we are trying to do that so our community feel properly served and not unjustifiably, not in a binder, basically. And so 300 seems to be a bit steep to me. I would make it more like 100, 150, and then I would not have any appeal fee, knowing that this is part of the process. When people make their petition, make their case, if they don't convince the manager, they should be able to talk to us again without having to pay extra.
These fees reflect staff time and labor involved in both the permitting, the initial application and the appeal.
Okay, but first, are we deferring this or are we voting on it right now? So,
I'm asking to defer. And I
okay,
would
so if one
appreciate-
asks for deferral, let's say, okay, going in.
I'm okay to it. I'd like to defer.
Okay, well, there's,
I just supposed to form consensus.
It's not going to change much if we are taking that next month.
so just comment, so next month there'll only be a 4-person board. And then in April, Doug is not available with the new date, so that'll also be a 4-person board, so we're counting on everybody.
Well, if defer, then I would say defer till May, till they have a full board. Otherwise, there's a majority right now to proceed. So trying to stack the deck so there wouldn't be a majority proceed is, or a tie.
There's an urgency to the board to get this done, but we'll put it off. Okay, so we'll bring this back to on major projects update.
Sorry, what just happened there? Are we not
It
talking-
was deferred
To when?
May.
What do other people think about the fees? I mean,
Wait,
so we can
we're on the next topic.
Discussing that, yeah.
Major project updates, with all the additional stuff that the board's been requesting and wanting to move forward with, I'm going to recommend we defer the hydrology study and the test wells indefinitely. There's just too much on staff's plate. So I don't think that'll be Q3 by any stretch of the imagination if we keep going with all these other projects. On the master plan, our consultant is taking longer. The calibration of the model is taking him some time, so he's having some issues with that. He needs to make another site visit. So the EV portion will be completed this quarter, but the full plan will be done in Q2. So that's the latest from him. Propane master plan, I did find someone that can do it. It's kind of a unique thing. I reached out to a lot of people, a lot of LNG companies, to see if they had people. They're not, almost none of them are licensed in California. Anyway, I did find someone, and we have a meeting on, Brandy and I will be meeting with him on Tuesday to discuss a propane master plan. No change on wastewater or water. Ogals Park project, no change. No change. So I did get a proposal, an engineering proposal, well, engineering environmental proposal for the design and environmental secret documents for the propane tank and roofs. And it's $180,000. So environmental is way more expensive than I ever realized it was. They really snuck up there on me. I haven't had to do environmental in a long time, but what I thought was going to be 20,000 was 70,000. So I just want to confirm from the board, we still want to proceed with that. It will be on the operations committee this month. And then we'll bring it back to the board for discussion in March, but $180,000 is what it will cost for the engineering.
I have a question. Yes, you mentioned that
Timber Creek Townhomes. They are an existing final map. And so they have, I forget what date, that's a different date. And I think if they really build in fall, they could be connected. I'm not going to use the word they have the right, but under the current board policy, they would be able to connect if they build by the date that was in the ordinance. Two duplexes, probably not. I don't think that creates any more urgency. No, it's if another condo complex was going in, that would create some urgency. 4 more connections, I'm not terribly worried. Yep, nope. Wastewater treatment plant continues on schedule. I will note that I added a number 4 on the propane rate study, Doug, from your comment, which is to consider revision of propane usage monthly correction.
Thank you.
Next rate study. So
Appreciate it.
I know that's the board's domain, but he had asked, the way we calculate the usage surcharge for propane is always lags by a month and applies the amount to the current month, even though it should have been applied to the previous. He would like to revisit that in the rate study, which I thought was appropriate to add. So Bob says it's a great idea, Doug.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And that's it for major projects. Any questions? So I finally, potentially, hopefully, fingers crossed, found someone to do the needs assessment. Finally. And I'm waiting on a scope and fee from them to do it. I got a referral from Amador Water Agency's general manager to someone who referred me to someone who referred me to someone who referred me to the final person that I actually had a Zoom meeting with and says, yes, I think we can do this. They wanted to talk to district's electric council first to make sure they understood the requirements that were in there and that they could deliver what was required by the public utility code. So I'm hoping they're still interested and will be providing me a scope soon. Yeah, and that's, other than that, we've been scrambling all week just to play catch up for being gone for so long. Needs assessment. Yep.
Nothing really to report unless there's any questions from the board.
We covered all the important items as part of the package. Maybe plan for about 10 days.
And it will be earlier by 1 hour. Just, I know Brittany had said that, but just to remind everyone.
We're going to be meeting again
20th? Yeah, same week. Yeah, 20th, I think. Doug, planning?
Planning didn't meet. We'll reconvene next week.
How everything we did was covered in our meeting today. Okay. Temporary advisory committee reports. All right, general discussion.
Anything from LAFCO on standing committee that you want to report on, Bob? Okay.
For general discussion, I think the only thing that I'd like to talk about is just, I know snow removal, I've heard from staff, takes up a lot of time. People get personal text messages about it from the community. We had a public comment today about, ways of making it more transparent in the board packet. It just, and I know just from people reaching out to me directly in the community about frustrations, and I know, again, this is not blame. It's been a really crazy season and there's a lot of stuff that's happened, and this isn't like I don't want to get this into a conversation about the details of what and how. It's just I do feel like as a board, I'm wondering if there are ways that we can help staff handle customer inquiries better, whether this is on communications or wherever it is. I'm just wondering if it's worth having a conversation at some point about how to communicate better, and also what can we do to better, service the community in some ways, especially in these crazy years. I mean, this isn't happening hopefully every year, but it's been a tough year, I think, and I just want to make sure that the community is getting the service that they pay for. They understand the nuances and the challenges, and we have a lot of staff burdened with a lot of work to deal with this, and try to communicate is hard to do on top of that. So I'm just wondering if it's worth thinking more about this.
I know we had some issues on the mechanical and factories.
But
it was not an ideal situation.
Yeah,
well, maybe what I'd like to do, Doug, if this works for you and the rest of the board, is we'll be done May 15th, but we could probably be close enough to being done to do a debrief on the season at the May board meeting.
Sure, that'd be great.
That would be helpful, people will understand better.
All right, good. All right, so at this point, we have a closed session.
Hold on. The experience I have. I have to renew my driving license. I went to the DMV and then they wanted to send me on this real ID thing. And I could not because my utility bill did not show the address. It shows the address, Fremont Road, and it was not saying California 931 at the same thing. So I could not use, I didn't have any utility bill that could not renew at the same. So I just wonder if we could add on our bill, which also I'm confused because I got it on one page. I'm a net metering person, but I've seen other bills on 2 pages. I'm confused why less information required 2 pages on 1 page. And so anyway, I was hoping that at some point staff could revise that billing form so we can actually use our utility bill as a
It has to full address.
Yeah, mine does too.
No, I checked to them and they said, no, it's a physical address 3986, but you know, it just said it has to say Kirkwood.
California, 9564.
That's a mailing address, that's not the physical. I told you, I was rejected. Because the physical address was not included in the solution. I mean,
You don't get it.
yeah, it's not that.
It's right there.
Eric, can you just state real quickly what the conversation is right now? I honestly can't follow.
Bertrand couldn't get a real ID. That's the conversation right now.
Okay, thanks. Is that,
Huh?
sorry, is that related?
No,
Okay.
no.
Or, okay. Or I'm just trying to understand what,
Sorry, you're not missing a thing.
Hearing any other general discussion, I'd like to move into closed session.
given that it's almost 5 o'clock, Bob, could we move closed session to next meeting or something like that?
And I understand, but no, we defer to the council.
What was the response there, Eric?
He said no.
Okay. Thanks.
So
Do it here or in the conference room?
Do it in the conference room.
in the conference room, and Doug, I'll send you in. Can you let Doug know?
Doug, he'll send you a link for a separate Zoom.
Thanks.
We're moving to the conference room. It's not looking like it's snowing here yet, so you're doing okay so far.
Sounds good.
I'd like to report out that at the closed meeting, we did not make we do not have any specific actions that are reportable. And with that, if there's no other items, then this meeting's adjourned. In the next meeting, we March 3rd, and I will not be here, but
It's have to be for the taxi.
Yes.
and the taxes will have the next time. And John will fill in for me.
I'm really good at all the Brownics.
That's right. Okay, thank you all for your time.
Meeting adjourned. Meeting adjourned.